Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Love's Refrain, the Stardust Duet Book 1 by K.G. Fletcher, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Cat, Present Day. Oh, wow. Everything is breathtaking. Bathed in a wash of bright stage lighting, Cat Monroe palmed the front of her thick coat before running the tips of her fingers down the faux fur trim. Taking a few steps forward to the very edge of the stage, she tilted her head back and gazed at several impressive chandeliers gleaming from the old plaster ceiling above. The famous Art Deco interior of the Grand Theater had gone through countless renovations since constructed in the early 1900s, the most recent adding state-of-the-art technical upgrades, enhancements to the modern sound and lighting systems, and new carpet. We're thrilled to have you back, Cat. To end your first national tour in your hometown has the entire Southeast scrambling to get tickets. The theater's general manager and longtime family friend, Pete Alexander, puffed his ample chest out with pride, making the buttons on his shirt strain to hold the fabric together. I'm so glad you agreed to a 2-weekend run. Local fans are chomping at the bit to see you. Cat turned and offered Pete a sincere smile. The only reason I agreed to a 2-weekend run is because of my fans. They're the ones who got me on the map. Snaking her arm through his, they ambled under the intricate details of the proscenium enhanced by thick red curtains scalloped in perfect swaths framing the famous stage. It really is the perfect way to end this whirlwind tour. I couldn't be happier. You know what they say, there's no place like home. Even though her semi-permanent address was now a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn, New York, she'd barely stayed in the past couple of years due to her touring schedule. She was glad to be back. The town of Whitley, Georgia, where she grew up, felt like her true home. Pete's robust chuckle was endearing, and he patted her hand while guiding her through the wings to the backstage area. Whatever you need, just ask. Hospitality set up some refreshments in the green room, already anticipating your early arrival. Make yourself comfortable while the crew gets things set up for sound check. He gestured with his free hand for her to go ahead. I've got a million messages waiting for me in the box office. It seems everyone in the state of Georgia wants a favor from me. A Cat Monroe concert ticket. And I've got a right mind to open up my own flower shop with all the special deliveries being made to the box office today. Opening night is sure to be a success. Cat giggled and unbuttoned her coat. Pete, I can't thank you enough for all you've done for me over the years. Ending the tour here where I started seems fitting. Standing on her tiptoes, she gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Even though I don't technically live here anymore, and Mama and Daddy are gone, this is still my home. His face turned ruddy as he nodded and wiped his chubby hand over his bald head. Well, we all miss them terribly. I wish they were here to see how far you've come. We're all bursting at the seams with pride. Now, if you need anything at all, just let me know. I'll look in on y'all at the sound check. Okay, she smiled and watched him bumble down the narrow hallway, his brown loafers clomping on the ancient floor with each step. With a sated sigh, Cat pulled a black beret off her blonde head before shrugging off her coat and laying it over her arm. Surveying the green room, she was happy to spy a beverage cart arranged with an assortment of coffee and her favorite tea. Another table was artfully arranged with a massive crystal bowl of fruit, a tiered serving tray of triangular-cut sandwiches, a veggie tray, and individual bags of chips. A candy dish filled with lemon drops beckoned her to sneak one into her mouth. She included the old-fashioned candy on the rider in her contracts, not because she had to have them, but because she wanted to make sure the venues where she performed actually read her agreement, which included the unusual request. As she plucked a yellow candy from the dish and sucked, she sat her coat and hat on a nearby chair. Crossing her arms at her chest, she walked the perimeter of the room, taking in the large familiar posters decorating the space. Performers from all over the world graced the walls, dancing, singing, and acting their way across the famous stage, many of whom she enjoyed while growing up in the small Georgia community. Pausing in front of her own poster from 2 years ago, she took in the image of her younger self in mid-song, posed under a bright spotlight. She marveled at how far she'd come. Who would have thought a southern girl like her would have made it in the world of jazz music? Her gift for evocative songwriting, paired with her charming, lighter-than-air vocals, blended old styles with the new and garnered the attention of NPR and other high-profile acts who insisted she open for them on their tours. Her debut album made it to the top 10 on the contemporary jazz chart, with the New York Times and Boston Globe dubbing her as fresh as a floral bouquet and congratulating her efforts as an exceptional artist who embodies the spirit of the past while remaining unwaveringly au courant. To wrap up her first tour in Whitley and perform at the Grand was the ideal setting. "Hey, you." Startled out of her reminiscent thoughts, Kat turned and smiled at her longtime assistant and close friend, Sasha Manning. "Hey, how's the dressing room set up? Is Charlie Chaplin's signature still legible in the far corner?" Sasha grinned and sidled up to the food table to fill a plate. "Barely. They've covered it in some hard plastic and put a little plaque next to it for preservation. God, this place brings back so many memories. The last time we were here, you were just starting out." "I know. Time flies. I feel like I've come full circle." "Right?" Sasha agreed. "Oh, by the way, I had to move a bunch of flower arrangements and gifts to the floor to make room for your makeup and hair stuff. The entire room looks like someone came in and assembled a pop-up flower shop. I've hung all your dresses on the clothes rack, too. I'll steam them before tonight's show. I swear, Kat, wait till you see some of the enormous bouquets in there. This town is going crazy having you back." Picking out a tea flavor from the beverage cart, Kat filled a mug with steaming water from the carafe before dunking the bag. "It feels good to end the tour here, don't you think? It'll be fun visiting my old stomping grounds on our off days, too." Sasha nodded and spoke with a mouthful of sandwich. "I can't wait." Spotting Kat's coat and hat over the chair, she set her plate down. "You want me to hang up your coat for you?" Kat waved her off. "Nope, I can do it later. You relax and grab a bite. I want to check out the lobby and backstage area to see what other renovations Pete convinced the Arts Council to complete." "Okie dokie." Posters continued down the narrow hallway, along with a plethora of autographs taking over the white wall space. The scribbles of top-notch entertainers and musical casts from around the world hard not to notice. The Grand was centrally located in the state of Georgia, not far from Atlanta, a military base, and a major airport. Patrons from all over the Southeast quickly sold out the space, especially when some of the well-known acts Pete booked. Add the charming downtown area full of great restaurants, boutique hotels, and a more laid-back atmosphere than the bigger cities, and the southern town of Whitley was forever dubbed a unique destination getaway. Using her shoulder to push a large metal door open, Kat entered a carpeted hallway leading to the iconic lobby. Her curiosity piqued as she paused by a door marked with a bronze plate that read, Hall of Fame. The Grand had a rich history of entertainers who came through, including Charlie Chaplin, Bob Hope, and Ray Charles. It was a well-known fact that 1920s illusionist and magician Harry Houdini was a featured player at the Grand back in its early heyday, with local lore claiming trapdoors were installed in the stage floor specifically for his act. Several Broadway tours were booked in recent times, and it was home to the local Whitley Symphony Orchestra. Interested, she sipped from her mug of tea and perused the room full of photographs, more posters, and memorabilia from days gone by. Antique furniture was artfully arranged in the room, with curio cabinets and display cases holding vintage treasure. An old movie projector from the Grand's movie house days, a signed guitar from the Allman Brothers Band, a frayed showgirl costume from the vaudeville era, and numerous stage props with little information cards attached offered fascinating glimpses into the history of the beloved theater. A massive mural with a local artist's rendition of stage performers posed with live animals from the infamous 1908 stage production of Ben-Hur made her gawk. With one hand on her hip and the other holding her mug, she took a step back and cocked her head to take in the image of the giant spectacle depicted in the rendering. Reading from the information card, she learned this particular production required a stage capable of handling treadmills for a live chariot race with real horses. The New York production was legendary. Pete, often boasting about the famous show folks, still talked about over 100 years later. And all this time, she thought he was pulling her leg. "Well, I'll be," she whispered, impressed by the unique stage history. Licking her lips, she turned and continued to take in her surroundings lazily. Her tastes were indeed of the vintage variety, and this little Hall of Fame was right up her alley. Over the last year, while on her tour, she loved exploring new cities when she had time off, getting lost in museums or searching for classic clothing and accessories in consignment shops. Her style was eclectic with an old-fashioned vibe, effortlessly blending the old with the new, just like her music. Give her seam stockings, pin-up style heels, and red lips and nails every day, and she was a happy girl. The sound of a piano tuner could be heard echoing through the hallways and made her pause. The monotonous one note at a time played over and over as an expert found the perfect pitch had her humming along. Her band would be here soon, and before long they'd get down to business with their last sound check of the season. Tucking a blonde curl over her ear, she took another sip of tea as her eyes landed on a portrait in the far corner. An LED wall-mounted display light highlighted the face of a handsome, smiling man, making her breath hitch. Moving toward the photo in a slow daze, her brow creased as she took in his striking features. Too bad the picture was in black and white. His gray eyes seemed to stare back at her, leaving her mystified and wondering if they were the color of green moss under an oak, the tawny gold of whiskey, or the blue-gray waves of the sea. As she stood there pondering the man's eye color, her skin unexpectedly prickled with goosebumps. She turned to look toward the door, her gaze roaming the entrance before she glanced up at the ceiling, covered with square tiles of what looked like salvaged original tin from days gone by. Although she loved performing in historical theaters like the Grand, she was often easily spooked by the tall tales and shadowed surroundings. Weird, she muttered to herself. With wide eyes, she was tentative as she turned to look at the black and white image of the man again, and noticed a tiny nameplate below the portrait. Peering at the cursive letters, she read his name out loud. Philip Gordon. Who? Kat whirled around again and exhaled loudly, her usual calm demeanor excited with jitters. Don't sneak up on me like that, Sasha. What? She grinned. Has Pete been filling your head again with more ghost stories about this place? Well, you know, he insists the Grand is haunted. Sasha scrunched her face and waved her off with a baby carrot. Oh, pish-posh, you don't believe in that nonsense, right? Shaking her head with uncertainty, Kat smoothed her blouse from her nervous free hand. Well, from the stories Pete has told me, you might want to rethink hanging around here after hours. Yeah, right, she guffawed, coming closer. Who's the cute guy with the dimple in his chin? Kat thrust her face in the air and turned around to admire the portrait again. Locking eyes with the man's gaze in the photo, she sighed. Someone named Philip Gordon. Doesn't ring any bells. Was he a beloved hometown performer like you? Kat squinted and ran a finger across the nameplate, hoping for more information, her crimson nails gleaming in the light. I don't know. There isn't any more information about him, just his name and a date. I'd kiss him, Sasha interrupted. Sasha! Kat exclaimed, humored by her forward friend. Oh, come on. You would too. He's hot in an old-fashioned chivalrous way. I mean, look at those dreamy eyes and that sharp jawline. And the dimple is adorbs. He's totally your type, too. My type. And what type is that? Sasha crunched the last of her carrot with a smirk. The handsome artist with a dimple type? She stood right next to Kat. What's the date say? Kat leaned forward to peer at the tiny script again. 1987? Sasha leaned into Kat and squinted, pointing her finger at the date. You mean 1947, girlie. Seriously, I've been telling you to get your eyes checked. Now that the tour is almost over, I'll make you an appointment. Her sigh was wistful as she stood tall with one hand on her hip. Damn, he is a cutie patootie. Too bad they don't make them like that anymore. She started for the door. Come on, the sound check starts soon, and you've got a ton of cards and flowers to look through. Sasha exited the room, and Kat started to follow, but felt an overwhelming urge to pause for a second more. Stopping in the threshold of the door, she dared to look over her shoulder one last time, her gaze lingering on the image of Philip Gordon circa 1947. With a meek smile, she had to agree with her friend. Yeah, too bad they don't make them like that anymore.